Imagine a world where Alexander the Great didn't succumb to illness in 323 BCE. What if, instead, he lived on and continued his campaign, pushing further into the Indian subcontinent? On the other side, we have the rapidly rising Mauryan Empire under Chandragupta Maurya, who, with the strategic mind of his advisor Chanakya, was steadily consolidating his rule over India. The stage is set for a monumental clash. To understand the potential outcome, we must first assess the key strengths and weaknesses of both forces. Alexander, renowned for his tactical brilliance and leadership, had already proven himself in battles like Gaugamela in the Battle of the Hydaspes. His cavalry, swift and highly effective, had the power to outmaneuver opponents. However, after years of relentless campaigning, Alexander's army was stretched thin, weary, and demoralized. Logistically, maintaining supply lines across vast distances was becoming increasingly difficult. In contrast, Chandragupta Maurya's empire was young but powerful, heavily supported by the wisdom of Chanakya. Chandragupta's forces relied on strong infantry and war elephants, which were highly effective against cavalry. His logistical infrastructure and economic stability provided the Mauryan army with sustained resources, giving them an edge in prolonged conflicts. To start things off, let's discuss the hypothetical empire setup of both the conquerors in detail. After his death in 323 BCE, Alexander's empire was fragmented into several regions controlled by his generals, the Diadochi. However, if he had survived, he would have likely consolidated his empire further, pushing into the Indian subcontinent to secure his position after his initial forays into the Punjab. His army, though fatigued from years of continuous warfare, was still formidable. But the question remains, could Alexander continue his conquest while managing multiple fronts, particularly the growing Mauryan state? On the other side, Chandragupta Maurya, around 321 BCE, emerged as a force to reckon with, initially defeating Nanda dynasty rulers in Magadha and laying the foundation for the Mauryan Empire. Under the guidance of Chanakya, also known as Kautilya, who was a master strategist and statesman, Chandragupta employed diplomatic, military, and strategic brilliance to build a strong empire, unifying much of the Indian subcontinent. The early Mauryan military success, including the defeat of the Nandas and later the Kalinga conflict, would have put them on a collision course with Alexander had he survived. Now let's delve into what a hypothetical battle between Alexander and Chandragupta might look like. Speaking of the hypothetical location of this magnum opus, the most likely battleground would be near the Indus River, a strategic region where both Alexander and Chandragupta had vested interests. The terrain here would have been more challenging for Alexander's cavalry, but the rivers and open plains could also give him the mobility he was famous for. Alexander, known for his innovative strategies, would aim to exploit his cavalry's speed and maneuverability, attempting to flank and outmaneuver the Mauryan forces. His forces might have tried to draw Chandragupta into a battle where the heavy reliance on war elephants could be neutralized. However, Chandragupta would have countered by utilizing his war elephants in dense formations, turning them into an impenetrable wall against Alexander's cavalry. Moreover, the Mauryan Empire's superior logistical systems would allow them to withstand a prolonged battle. Chanakya's influence would likely have played a key role in devising defensive strategies and even psychological warfare, which could have undermined Alexander's forces. The familiarity with the local terrain would further benefit the Mauryas, who could use their knowledge of forests and mountainous regions to launch surprise attacks, forcing Alexander's battle-hardened but weary army into difficult terrain. Now, let's discuss the possible scenarios with their chances of likelihood. Alexander prevails. In this scenario, despite his fatigued forces, Alexander's tactical brilliance might allow him to win a short, decisive battle. If he could exploit any weaknesses in the Mauryan coordination, perhaps taking advantage of initial confusion, Alexander could push deeper into the Indian subcontinent. However, given the size and strength of the Mauryan Empire, a prolonged conflict would likely have ended in failure for Alexander. The victory, if achieved, would have been at a great cost, leading to possible guerrilla resistance and instability. Chandragupta Maurya prevails. Chandragupta, under Chanakya's guidance, had the organizational advantage. His army, supported by war elephants, well-structured logistics, and strong economic systems, could outlast Alexander's weary forces in a prolonged campaign. The Mauryas' strategic advantage, combined with their superior knowledge of the terrain, would likely force Alexander to retreat. This scenario would see Chandragupta solidifying his control over northern India, with the defeat of Alexander marking a significant blow to Greek expansion into the subcontinent. Stalemate and diplomatic resolution. While Alexander's ambition might push him towards military confrontation, it's possible that both sides, recognizing the futility of further conflict, could settle for a diplomatic resolution. Alexander, weary and facing logistical challenges, might agree to a non-aggression pact or a tribute in exchange for maintaining control over parts of the western subcontinent. This scenario, though less likely given Alexander's aggressive nature, still holds a slight chance, particularly if both empires sought a temporary peace to secure their interests. Now, to conclude things, if Alexander the Great had lived beyond 323 BCE and met Chandragupta Maurya on the battlefield, the outcome would have hinged on several factors: the resolve of both leaders, the strategic execution, and the ability to adapt to changing battlefield conditions. While Alexander's military genius cannot be overlooked, the Mauryan Empire's advantages in resources, logistics, and war elephants would likely have given Chandragupta the upper hand in the long term. The implications of such a battle would have shaped the history of the Indian subcontinent. A victory for Alexander could have led to a Greek-inspired cultural influence in India, while a Mauryan victory would have solidified India's autonomy and strengthened Chandragupta's role as one of the most powerful rulers in ancient history. As we reflect on this hypothetical encounter, one thing remains clear: the legacies of both Alexander and Chandragupta, shaped by ambition and strategy, continue to inspire and intrigue historians and strategists alike.